Donald Trump made his visit to East Palestine, Ohio, of course, the site of the toxic chemicals train derailment that took place, and the outcomes of that we've been discussing. Serious stuff. And we're going to dive into some clips. I'll say, just kind of as a preview, the speech we're going to look at from Trump is definitely defined as confused. He's very confused during this speech, attempting to, and I say that's kind of assuming good faith. The honesty probably, or the honest way to describe this, is he's being dishonest. He's distorting the facts to be able to criticize Biden in some dishonest ways. And a couple main points up front, just to kind of add context, and then we'll dive in. Up front, I want to say, I'm going to do a lot of debunking of Trump's arguments and kind of conservative arguments we've heard attacking Democrats as of late. That doesn't mean it's not justified to also hold accountable those who are currently in power. When we get to, and we will, talking about how the Trump administration rolled back regulations that could have contributed to this, and Trump's not recognizing that, that doesn't mean also we shouldn't be looking to our current leaders and saying, you need to respond properly. And criticism that has gone the direction of current leaders, Biden, Pete Buttigieg, all of that's perfectly good. I'm also wanting to call out the dishonesty of Trump here. So making that clear, because sometimes a debunking of a dishonest attack makes it sound like all criticism is something I disagree with, which isn't the case here. But it is, and this must be stated, conservative ideology that tells us we should deregulate, we should leave everything up to the free market, and then we get situations where that very deregulation allows for realities like the one we're seeing in East Palestine, Ohio. So that's the first point up front before we dive into the first clip. The second is, even though we understand that Trump is doing this just for optical reasons, going to East Palestine, delivering waters, buying McDonald's for people, it doesn't mean those individual actions are bad. You can say Trump's a bad person. He's doing this for optics. And still, I'm glad water bottles were brought. And I'm glad for the people who got meals bought for them by Trump at McDonald's. And again, we'll get to the specifics in a second here. That's also something I think that you should have nuance on and think, great. Even if a bad person does a small or mid-sized good thing, doesn't mean both of those can't be true. So with all that being said, let's dive into the first clip here, where he's trying to take credit for the FEMA response to this, which is strange.
That's what it is. This is really America right here. We're standing in America. Unfortunately, as you know, in too many cases, your goodness and perseverance were met with indifference and betrayal in some cases. Biden and FEMA said they would not send federal aid to East Palestine under any circumstance. They're not going to send aid.
False.
Thought that was a strange statement, because I've been working with FEMA for a long time, 4 years, and they were great with us with the tornadoes, the hurricanes, and things like this. And it was a strange statement to come out, and they were doing nothing for you. They were intending to do absolutely nothing for you. JD and I spoke, and they said, they're not coming. They're not going to come. And I said, that's very strange. FEMA said, specifically, this doesn't meet the criteria, and that's horrible, and somebody has to do something for those people. I said back, when I announced that I was coming, they changed their tune. It was an amazing phenomena. The mayor and I were discussing that.
They changed the tune. Yeah, so that's not the series of events, or at least the causation there is definitely not substantiated. With the FEMA response, the reason why they weren't able to go in full, or they weren't going in and responding to this in the ways that were being called for, is because the Republican governor, and the way that this is structured, local officials have to make a determination that the situation on the ground is one that warrants FEMA. And so the governor was not declaring a state of emergency. So that's actually what you should be talking about if you're talking about FEMA specifically. Doesn't mean there's not criticism for also Democrats in the situation. There is, but here we're walking through the dishonesty of Trump. And then you get to him talking about the water bottles that he's brought, and they are Trump water bottles, apparently. Again, I say, even though having the name of Trump on a water bottle is unfortunate, not a bad thing that water bottles are there.
But we're going to find time to come back if necessary. If they don't come back and give you the treatment that you need, we will be back. The Biden administration should ensure that every family has the option of moving and homes and everything else until this thing is straightened out. I do want to especially thank some of the incredible people that helped us, because we're bringing thousands of bottles of water, Trump water, actually, most of it. Some of it we had to go to a much lesser quality water. You want to get those Trump bottles, I think, more than anybody else. But we're bringing a lot of water, thousands of bottles, and we have it in trucks, and we brought some on my plane today. But to that end, I'm pleased to announce that we've helped coordinate the delivery of the water and bottled water, as well as the tractor trailers full of it. We have big tractor trailers full of water. I think you're going to have plenty of water for a long time, Ed.
All right. So you get the point on that one. And then something that's gotten some attention was just a strange moment where Trump said the mayor who was behind him, Trent Conaway, was easy to find.
I also want to recognize a man who has been working tirelessly for this community since the beginning of the nightmare. And Trent, where's Trent? He's very easy to find. Huh? He's very easy to find. I want to thank you. Thank you very much. I'll call you up in a second. Thank you. I also want to recognize a man who...
Interesting. And then finally from this event, and then we have some other stuff from this trip, him going on a bizarre tangent about Big Ten football.
Earlier, or at least a week earlier, but they decided to do it this way, and I guess it came from the top. And so we have to understand that. You know, it reminded me a little bit, I don't know if you remember, when Ohio State wasn't going to be playing football for another season. They were going to sit back and watch with the China virus or COVID, whatever you want to call it. And I called the head of the Big Ten football. I said, you got to get this football open. And they were great. They responded, and Ohio State played that season. Nobody remembers that, I think, right? Does anybody know? You got at least one. You could be close, but by now you still would be close probably. But we got that open very early. And you had a great season of football, to put it mildly. So that was a very good honor, the Big Ten. And that led to the NFL, and it led to most of the rest of football in the country. But you led it through Ohio State and Big Ten.
The big man saved football during COVID. He brought it back for our viewing pleasure. And then we get to the McDonald's part of this. And here is a little clip from that.
And we're going to get the meals for the fire department. Okay? Hello, everybody. What's your specialty today?
How are you today? Nice to meet you.
Hello, everybody. That's a nice, beautiful-looking group of people. So I know this menu better than you do, okay? I probably know it better than anybody in here. We're going to take care of the fire department.
Okay.
We're going to take care of the police department. And what we do is all the people that are eating right now.
Okay, so then buying the meals for fire and police department members. And here's what's upsetting about all this. Trump is actively ignoring a very present and important part of this, which is whenever he was president, his transportation department took actions that may have seemed to have, we can't know for sure in one particular instance oftentimes, but likely contributed to what we're now seeing in East Palestine, Ohio, and other train derailments, because they decided to deregulate to help companies save a little bit of money instead of proper regulations that would save situations like this, or prevent, I should say, situations like this from happening. And he got asked about that and just said, no.
What do you make of Biden, or rather Buttigieg's criticism of you pulling back rail regulations? Do you think it would have made a difference?
I had nothing to do with it.
I had nothing to do with it, he says, which is not true. At least, again, I say individual instances, similar to how we talk about climate change affects general trends, more things will be happening, more extreme weather events, all of that. But we can't point to one hurricane and say this was caused because of climate change. But we do know that generally these derailments would be less likely if it wasn't for the Trump administration and his transportation department's actions here from Business Insider. The Trump administration slashed several environmental and rail regulations while in office, most notably rescinding a 2015 proposal to require faster brakes on trains that were carrying highly flammable or hazardous materials. Well, that seems to apply. And then it talks about the Norfolk Southern derailment specifically. And then the Department of Transportation under Trump justified the rollback with a 2018 analysis, arguing the cost of requiring such brakes would be, quote, significantly higher than the expected benefits of the update. So he's ignoring that. And that's what makes this moment for him to look good in the press and visit and call out Biden for not being there. And why is Biden in Kyiv on President's Day? He should be here. And it makes all of that just that much more dishonest. If he would own up to the flaws in his ways, maybe there would be more honesty there. And also, and we'll talk about this more later in the show, it's general conservative ideology that has to be called out here too, that deregulation is the best policy, which, number one, is far too simple. In some situations, regulations are necessary. In some situations, they're not. But so much of the time, and in so many instances, we understand, unfortunately, after the fact, that if certain regulations were in place, the situation that we're discussing in that moment or reflecting on would not have happened. And so we have to push back against that and recognize, while regulation is not always necessary, times there are absolutely unnecessary regulations. The stance that sometimes, yes, companies are going to be inconvenienced because that will make citizens, that will make consumers more safe, is a reasonable and justified cause to push for. And the train derailment is a great example of why that is.